Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Before I start, I do seek unanimous consent to split my time.
The honourable member have unanimous consent to split his time? Yes. Agreed.
Thank you. I'll be splitting my time, Madam Speaker, with the member for Caribou, Prince George. It's always a pleasure to have the opportunity of speaking on behalf of the fine constituents of my riding, and it's equally more important that it is significant for me as a former participant in the criminal justice system for almost 2 decades. This is an issue that I have been pushing and advocating for change, and really one of the rationales as to why I left the Crown Attorney's system in Ontario and seek to become a legislator to make and to pass laws that will improve community safety. So we take a look at the last 10 years, Madam Speaker, and we just see plummeting, rising, I should say, not plummeting, rising crime rates of very serious matters right across this country. I have embarked on a cross-Canada tour and engaged with all the stakeholders that you can imagine that would have a position on this, and all of them had been unanimous in terms of what needs to be done. And in fact, for the last 4 years, engaged in their own sort of advocacy with this federal government, writing to not only our current Justice Minister, but former Justice Ministers Varani, to effect change. And for 4 years, Madam Speaker, that was largely ignored. We know how we got to this situation, and I think I often get asked this question is, why are the Liberals so preoccupied with the rights of the accused at the expense of victims and community safety? I never really had a real concrete answer to provide to them without doing a little bit of research. And I did that, Madam Speaker, and surprisingly, this goes back almost 50 years, to the early 1970s. The Trudeau government, this time Pierre Elliott Trudeau, appointed a Solicitor General by the name of Jean-Pierre Goyer, who stood in the House of Commons, not this building, but Centre Block, and proudly proclaimed in the House at that time his intention to stress the rehabilitation of individuals rather than the protection of society. And that struck me as wow, like a wow moment. The origin of this whacked out, hug-a-thug mentality with this Liberal government in terms of making it so much easier for them to conduct their trade. And then we hear from Justin Trudeau and his then Justice Ministers that don't blame us, we are simply following what the Supreme Court of Canada literally asked us to do, and to codify changes in bail with the passage of Bill 75. Well, Madam Speaker, I have read those decisions in my professional capacity and again as a parliamentarian, and specifically I'm referring to the decisions of Antic, Zora, and St. Cloud, which, Madam Speaker, never instructed the federal government to do anything, never instructed them to codify any principle in the criminal code. How criminal justice is administered in this particular country is we follow the criminal code, but we also bear in mind case law, decisions from our lower courts, decisions from our superior courts, decisions from appellate courts, and the Supreme Court of Canada. That's how the administration of justice works. So Justin Trudeau and his current Liberal government didn't have to do anything, but they did. And at that time, this is 2019, Madam Speaker, I'm in the trenches, I'm dealing with bail court, and I'm saying to myself, why is it becoming exceedingly difficult to take an obvious case where someone has proven themselves to be unreliable in making promises and have proven themselves to be a menace not only to themselves but also to the community, but they were being released? And of course, we would get memos from our superiors in Ontario and Queen's Park. And lo and behold, I find out that the federal Liberal government changed the law, changed the direction, changed the trajectory of what bail court is all about, and instructed, in my view, all judges and justices of the peace who hear bail applications every single day to prioritize the release of the accused with the principle of restraint, releasing them at the earliest opportunity on the least restrictive conditions. That, Madam Speaker, is and will always be the origin of catch and release. I lived it, I experienced it, and unfortunately the rest of Canada is still experiencing it. Then it made it even worse. The current Liberal government made it worse in 2022 when they decided that they had to pass C5, that they had to make it even easier and softer for criminals to get through the criminal justice system. Let's take some of the most serious gun offenses and take away all those mandatory minimum penalties, take away the ability to, give the ability to ask for conditional sentences for very serious offenses, and we all know the consequences. Then they started to hear from these stakeholders again, and they promised, they were listening, that they would make some changes, hence C-48, increasing reverse onus provisions in the criminal code, which we know did not have the desired impact. So when I take a look at Bill C-14, I see more reverse onus provisions, much like C-48. I can't say this is C-48.2 because it's not. But I listen to the Justice Minister, and he wants to provide some confidence to Canadians and to victims that they're finally getting it right, that they're striking the right balance, that community safety is going to be paramount. But I can tell you, Madam Speaker, there is nothing in C-14 that directs the judges not to release in certain circumstances. It makes recommendations that they shouldn't give primary consideration to early release, but does not mandate that these dangerous repeat criminals should remain in custody, because we all know what happens. When we lock up the repeat violent criminals, the crime rates go down. In fact, when you take a look at StatCan statistics over the last 10 years, in fact, over the last 15 years, the last 4 or 5 years of the Stephen Harper government, the crime rate went down significantly. When you look at that same graph, you see a spike the moment Justin Trudeau took government, and every year thereafter. 2 minutes, thank you. So I'm not saying that C-14 is not going to be manna from heaven, because it's not. It is being supported by law enforcement, just like they supported C-48, because let's face it, they are desperate. They are desperate for something. But I've spoken to all the major stakeholders who are now coming out in the media to say they support Bill C-14, and they have made recommendations to this government. Some have been captured, not all. So I think there is many avenues for improvement, Madam Speaker, and I would encourage the government, as they listen to my speech, as we move towards debate in the House of Commons and ultimately reviewing this at committee, that they take a look at the common sense solutions in the member for Oxford's Jail Not Bail Act. It provides direct instructions to judges on how to deal with repeat violent criminals. We start by scrapping the principle of restraint and replacing that with the principle of public safety and protection. That is an instruction that would telegraph to the judges that when you're dealing with a class of individual who's been on a number of releases or has a criminal record that shows repeated behavior of not abiding by conditions, that the priority is on the protection of the community, not the convenience of the accused. So I encourage the government to take a look at that. I see my time is fastly coming to an end. This is something that I could probably speak for hours, Madam Speaker, but unfortunately I don't have that opportunity. It's good, not good enough. Conservatives will make it better. Thank you.
Questions and comments. Questions et commentaires. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. We all know that the Prime Minister made a solemn commitment to Canadians by saying we were going to be bringing forward bail reform legislation. A phenomenal amount of work and effort has been done in terms of consultations with a wide spectrum of stakeholders, whether it's provinces, territories, Indigenous leaders, so much consultation that was done on it. We now have substantial bail reform legislation before us today. And I think that we have, whether it's mayors, premiers, you name it, individuals that want to see the Parliament act on this legislation. Would the member not agree that it would be a wonderful thing to commit to seeing this bail reform legislation pass ultimately and even get royal assent before the end of the year?
Great question.
The Honourable Member for Brantford, Brant South, Six Nations.
Well, it's optimistic for the member to suggest that it could be passed by the end of the year. But I'm hoping that if we consider that as an opposition party, that my friend's party would also consider reasonable amendments to improve the bill. I said it's good, it's not best, it can be approved. My friend talks about a substantial bail reform package. I would disagree with substantial. There is some relief here that law enforcement would like. The reality, though, in practical terms, it does not separate those offenders that should be separated from consideration from getting bail. Jail Not Bail Act, I encourage this member to read, provides great counsel on that issue.
Questions et commentaires.
Questions and comments?
The Honourable Member for Senator Gulf Islands, yes, and then I'll go.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To my honourable friend from Bradford Brant. His take on the legislation is fascinating for me. I know how hard he's worked in this area. I'd be very grateful to share ideas for reasonable amendments. My sense from the Minister is that he and the government are open to amendments. My question to my honourable colleague is has he been also asking to see how open they are to improve the bill through amendments?
Honourable Member for Brantford, Brant South, Six Nations.
Madam Speaker, would you allow her to repeat that last line? I didn't quite catch it. There was some talking in my background. I could not hear it.
Apparently there was some issues with the sound, so we'll stop the timer so that the Honourable Member for Senator Gulf Islands can repeat the question.
I won't repeat the whole question. The Honourable Member asked me to repeat the last line, which was to ask my colleague if he has had indications, as I feel I have, that the government will consider helpful amendments that allow us to support the bill. And I know he has criticisms, I have criticisms. Maybe we can compromise and get a better bill.
The Honourable Member for Brantford, Brant South, Six Nations.
Thank you to my colleague for that question. Unlike previous justice ministers, my relationship with our current justice minister is vastly different. He is open to conversation. We've exchanged our personal cell numbers. I spoke about this bill with him this past weekend. He knows that we're going to be putting forth reasonable amendments. He's indicated a willingness to look at that. In fact, I'm even going to suggest that I'm going to pass it on to him even before it gets to committee, because I think here is an opportunity for this House all to work together to make this the best possible bail and sentencing reform that we can produce at this juncture in time.
The Honourable Member for Langley Township, Fraser Heights.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to my honourable colleague for his inspiring speech. What we're hearing a lot here today is the Liberal government coming up with workarounds around their old Bill C-75, which introduced Section 493 to the Criminal Code, and that's the principle of restraint in the administration of bail and bail court. But my question to my colleague is, instead of doing these workarounds, can we get rid of Section 493 altogether? The Liberals are blaming it on the Supreme Court of Canada, but they were never instructed to change the law. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Brantford, Brant South, Six Nations.
I thank my colleague for that excellent question. an equally excellent suggestion. That is a particular issue that we have been advocating for years. As I indicated in my speech, in 2019, that creation, the principle of restraint, amending the code, was the genesis of the problems we face today. So it would be a very easy fix to simply repeal 493.1, the principle of restraint in the code, and use language that emphasizes the protection of public when dealing with violent repeat offenders.